I think the recording has started. Hello everyone, I am Sushant Srivastav and I am a beta Microsoft Learn Ambassador. So today I'll be covering on Azure PubSub services, which will help us create real-time chat application as we grow through using some of the Microsoft technologies and some courses and training that Microsoft provides using GitHub altogether. So let me start sharing my screen. Give me a few seconds. Are you able to view my screen now?
Yes.
Okay, thanks. So as you start, let me talk about what Azure Web PubSub service provides. So it's a service that provides a real-time messaging web application using WebSockets and and publish and subscribe model which help us to create a real-time chat application. So the real-time functionality provides any content update that we do on real-time, the chat services, the chatbots that we are doing. So since we know AI is coming there, so chat services is something that is in real time and it is being overtaken by AI as well nowadays. So here we'll just talk about how rich APIs we can use on creating these different chat platforms. So let me just brief down on how Azure Web uh, PubSub service works. So if you see this model, so if you see there's a client, there's a web connection, there is a client service, and there's a REST API call that is going through the server. So what we will do in our demo, we'll be talking about server and client service. But then we'll also talk about web service and client, and then WebSocket connections. So let's just read through some of the words. So if you see water connection, meaning client and client connection, whatever they are generating through the WebSocket, and you're also talking about a hub which collects of a user group and a user specifically. So let me also go through on how this service helps us in real time. So why should we use this Azure service specifically? So if we see any scenario that has real time public services subscribing system, which uses client and server model, will require some sort of service where a user requires to enter some data and get some feedback from the server that we are talking about. So here, when we talk about using our Azure Pub service, what are the greater functionalities? So we talk about high frequency data updates, we talk about gaming, we talk about voting, polling options, live dashboards that we have. We have cross-platform chat support. Those topics are also covered here. I mean, we since Azure is giving this service, it can be extended exponentially, and it can be a real-time software which can allow enterprises to connect towards their chat-based systems. But then, since we are just beginning with this, we'll be just covering a small topic. Let us also see what other small things we might require. So if we are using WebSocket sub protocols to do sub client service. So in here, you see sub protocols specifically empower authorized client to publish and convince the user as well as the server that you're talking to. So there are two users talking to each other. They can usually use their chat application and then provide. You can also, since you are using a REST API client to send and receive messages, so we can enable that service to clients and they are able to do cross programming platforms as well. So we saw our socket connection. REST API is an endpoint that we'll be using from client service to the server. And then we move on to WebSocket and then connection to the user. We also have a proper guide and training on Microsoft Learn. So I'll be providing these links to people as well, which you'll be able to follow. So all the real-time coding that we will be doing, you'll be getting from these services. But then I'll be walking through all the service that we'll be using for the whole demo. So let me just begin what they are talking about. So we see the learning objective of this video is creating a web service instance. web pub service instance, and we're also talking about one static web, which will be catering as a server and another one as a client, and they'll be doing real time chatting communication as well. And we're also using a GitHub repo where we'll be storing the chat based application. For the purposes of this demo, Microsoft also provides us a sample web application on GitHub itself, so that we do not need to particularly create any static web page for our use case. And we will be also testing this use case with the chatting system that we'll be doing in real time. So let me go through. If you guys have any doubts, you can put it into the chats. Let me start the module, and as well as I'll be sharing my screen and sharing what they are going to put into. Just let me begin with the topic first. So this is the overview that we'll be using. So if you see Azure DevOps, we'll be using because we need resource groups and all to be configured here. So if you're students in college, you will be getting around $100 credit from Azure that you'll be able to utilize, or you can get it from your college ID as well if they allow you, and then you can use this service because we just need a resource group that we'll be using. Other than that, we'll be just using Azure functions that is already integrated. We'll be using a static web app that is provided by GitHub and Microsoft, and then we'll be using the actual web PubSub service. So let us continue with the module that we are starting with. Give me a moment. Just a moment. The first module would be creating a web services. I can use a shell, but I can also use my Azure Direct ID. I'll just do that for you guys so that you'll understand what we need to do. So let me open my Azure portal. So here we will just see whatever this service is providing. So one thing that we need to give is a unique name that we'll be requiring for our sandbox. If you are taking this as a learning purpose, you can use this sandbox completely. But just for the sake of the demo that we'll be doing, I'll just be using my actual instance for this demo. So if you see here, we will start with creating a WPS team. For this, we need Azure console only. We do not require anything else. We can configure it from here. Let me just start with this. Yes, if you see my Cloud Shell is open, let me give a WPS name. So a unique name could be like MS Learn chat app. I'm just keeping this for now. And then we will be using LOC. LOC is something that we give a region name. So here for the demo, I'll be using uh, East US East 2. So let me just give that. This is done. This is just storing in two of these variables, that is WPS name and then LOC. Then we need a power service that will be installing. So let me just add that extension here. So this just creates this instance for our cloud shell to be used. So this is done as well. So now what we need to do is we need a resource group that we will be using for the video. So since here they have a specified resource group for the sandbox, but I'll be using my own resource group. So for resource group, I'll just create one quickly. I have this one already ready with me. Let me try to delete if that makes sense. Yeah, I'll just delete this one. I did a practice before our session, so we'll just delete this and redo the whole step. You can see we have an actual web static app that we just prepared before the video. So I'll just remove all of this. So let me create one with the name of MS Azure chat app. And let me keep the region as US East US 2. So after the validation check, we'll just start with that. So just for keeping the name same, let me just remove the WPS name that we previously gave. We will also name this as Azure chat app. So while these are being deleted, we will be starting with the other steps that we have. So by that time, the whole resources would be deleted. So let me give the resource ID here. Resource group, sorry. Our resource group is MS Azure chat app. Our previous resource is deleted. So this is installing the web service, web pub sub service for us that we don't need to work. If you see here, we create a web service in automatically create a resource group in a sandbox, which takes a bit of time because we are installing web PubSub resource. After that, we will store an API key that will be requiring to access this. So let me just copy that and keep it ready. So we can see our resources start ready now. Let me just showcase this one. You can see this has all the details that we just entered and the service that we are providing as an host name and the ID that we'll be using for subscription and the license that we are using. So we are using free license here. So we are just testing the service. So we might not require any actual licenses here. So we'll continuing with that. Next is retrieving the Azure Web PubSub access key in the access key here. So let me just do that. So here as well, I'll be requiring to insert the resource group. Let me do that. This is your chat app. So our key saved, we can move forward now. So if you can see, our next step is going to be preparing our GitHub repo. So GitHub repo is specifically uh, for our use case because we'll be using the static app that is based out of GitHub. So for the namesake, since we're using the same name, let me just keep Azure chat app and clear this repo quickly. This takes a template from actual PubSub service that they Microsoft provides to the learning process, and we'll be just using that name. So it is asking for my GitHub username. Let me just quickly enter those. Enter the name. We move on to so now since we are creating a new web static app from our repo, once we run this command, we'll give an interactive sign-in module from GitHub so that we can log in and then so I'm just giving my endpoint correctly. So the source typically means the GitHub repo link. Then just enter that, and then we are at our resource group again. This is your chat app. Oh, we missed something. Let me check. Okay, our application is missing. So this would be it's not taking our location. Let me just quickly check this. Location is taking. Okay, I think we need to give our location that we just took in the beginning. That is East West 2. Oh yes, this just worked. So LOC, the variable that we used in the beginning was not working, so we just gave an override name East US 2. So this is an interactive login page. So we get a user code if you see here T47B 42BB. Let me just copy that. We get a login page that we can use from GitHub to start interacting with the application that we have. So I'll just enter it here. We just authorize this one. This also asks me for my factor authentication. Mhm. Yeah. If you guys have any doubts in between, you can ask, but we'll be taking questions in the end as well. So now we are at a page where our connection is established. We see the connection being established here as well. Okay, I think I uh, give it at a different profile. Let me just try on this one. I believe we should have done it. On this one, I entered it in our sandbox. Yes, we should be able to do it here as well. Okay, our configuration went wrong because we already executed it from here. Uh, Let me see. Let me try to continue from this interface as well. If I can do that, let me give me a moment. What I can do is I can quickly delete this repository and then continue. Since we already used it there. Yes, so now this is deleted. I'll just go ahead and create another one here. The actual code it should have been in the first place. Copy this. Now simple is we have to create the profile again. Yeah, let's just create this one. Yeah, so now this is available. We will chat app. Let me just change the resource group as well. And our application name. This should be fine. Yes. We got the activation page. Now we'll take this user code and go to our service again from here. Okay, so login device, login, authorize. Yes. Okay, now so my resource group should be connected here. It didn't happen. Okay, let me just copy this. Oops. This service is up now. Giving the permission. Yes, now it's done. We have all the systems ready from Azure. Now what we need to do is we need to configure our web app settings that we have. So we'll be entering the keys as well here. PubSub API. Let me just change the app name here. It's doing its own thing. Shows location, app settings, and then this config setting that we are doing. And now we have, once we have configured the static app settings, we have the view of the website where we have two aspects of the page. It shows underlying resources of Azure for making our application and how GitHub actions help us to prepare CI pipelines, that is for continuous integration. So this way I've just shows where our application is stored. Let me show that. Yes, this query first, which is MS Azure. This is your chat app. So this was my repo link where our repository and app is stored, web app. Give me a moment. So return to the console window where you run this command that shows our GitHub repository URL. We copy the repository URL and go to the actions page. So let me show what exactly what this line means. So if you see, we get this page, we go to actions, we see a CI pipeline. Let me just open this. These are all the steps that run through. They already ran, so I'll just show what these people are doing. These are the pipelines for the build that we took into place, and then continue with the actions that GitHub automatically provides us. You can drop in your questions if you guys have any on the chat, or you can directly unmute and ask. This is the OS type that it builds
Sushant,
upon.
uh,
Yes, yes, Morley.
am I audible?
Yes, you're audible.
I just have a small doubt.
Okay,
Does this
what
whole
is it?
process can be done through Terraform as we do in AWS?
So Terraform is something that is specifically also provides Azure services, but if you see the Azure shell directly provides you to all the services that you need to require, but then Terraform would be somewhere if you're building a huge enterprise application you might use. But then since we are only using two or three services like resource groups and the web app that we are using for integration, we might not require any such extensive coding because Terraform would have its own learning curve if you're starting from the beginning. So it's better if you just use a Cloud Shell if you're taking this for practice. But then if you're thinking of an application that which might require an whole Azure infrastructure specifically, then you might use Terraform. That's a good question actually. Terraform will help us to create whole enterprise based application. If you see, these resource groups are very basic. Even if I'm creating one of the VM domains as well, it might not even require those because I can configure all of those in my with the setup that we have.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. So if you see these services that we have, network groups and all, they are created just by a click in Azure portal directly. So you might also use it if you are using it for an enterprise. You might go from the Terraform base if you're not using the GUI of the Azure. But then that's an always handy feature that we can use. But I believe since we are just learning how Azure portal works, you might not need to know Terraform from the basics as well. So it's better if you we can just follow the guide and then we will know once in the end. I'll just show the demo how the chat application works, and then you'll know how simplified this application is there. Thank you for the question. So we'll be moving on now. These are final steps and the final complete job. Move next. So we see we just saw this pipeline and it shows us run the following command query for the website URL that you are putting up. So let me do that, which will store the value in web app. So our static web app will have the entity of the server and the client that we'll be using, as one is being publisher and one is being subscriber. You can also consider this as your Kafka setups as well, which has listener and consumer services, but this is a different approach that Azure follows. And it's quite easy if you're just trying to use it or a mere practice level or a basic understanding on how this service works. So I'll have to change my application name here. Is your chat app. Yes, so we have stored the value of our endpoint. So now we see we just need to configure the handler that we are looking. So we are very close to finishing this. So our last step would be taking our client to use the backend APIs if they need to make any calls from those APIs. If you do not know specifically on what API is something that you can use the website and REST API clients to set a path for doing a lot of CRUD operations like get, post, redo, undo, those steps. So this is an API call that uses from Azure CLI. Just let me just use this one. You requiring another. Let's check what all we are changing here. We just need our resource group here. Chat app. This creates our client module for the service. So if you see, we are just configuring Web Pub service events, which will map under the API folder that we have on our GitHub repo. And we are almost reaching towards the end of our module. Just so we'll be moving on towards the demo. So this gives you ID, the application service name sample that you're using. You're using event handlers. So this is from the client perspective, and one is from the server perspective. So if you want to know what our URL would be, there are two, three ways. Let me show that. One is if you believe, you remember we have web static app and service. So since this is a variable, we can just display the variable here. So if you just type static web app. So if you see, we got the endpoint here. We do not need the actual whole folder. So we just need the front of this, mm, copy and open it in in a tab. So let me create one user. So it can be user client, for example. So this is one service that is up. Now we'll go to the other one. So this is one. And another could be this itself. Let me just copy. Yeah, I'll just remove API from here. These are not making API clients. A serverless application which helps us to create a chatbot. So it will just make it client two or admin client. We just type the first message. So this is hello client. Let's see, we get an acknowledgement as well once the message has been sent and received in the end, and we can see the reply here. Let me just send it from this side as well. So this is WebSocket being opened, and this is another client socket being opened. So if you can see, both the user is here. My name is Harry. Name. Let's see on the other side. So yeah, we receive the name. Uh, This is Gopal. Nice to meet you. So as you saw, we were able to create a whole application out of this using an established web service instance and being able to configure our web static app from backend APIs, which is already being integrated from GitHub. We're also talking on how we are managing the messages that you are using, sending with this application. We also want to test our application here, and we are also looking how CI app system works from this topic. Let me move on to one more explanation. Let me see. Second, let me cover a few facts if we see. Let me move on to next module. So we have achieved this training course from Azure. I'll be sending this learn URL so you can try it on your own. It only requires your student ID that you can use from your university and your GitHub profile, which we'll be using. So we'll talk about some of the key features that Azure, how Azure provides. So let me just see some benefits of this profile. So we see an advantage of being Azure Web App Service as flexible and scalable. We have a huge Azure services compatibility. We have a lot of services that Azure provides to users that can be used in real time, providing a lot of new services. And it has built-in support for large client connections as well. So this is just one service. They can create a huge instance out of this, a large real scale application, which will be integrated with multiple clients that will be putting up. Also, if you see here, we have a lot of rich APIs that we have from Web Pub service is bi-directional messaging service, and it allows to send. Let me just see. If you have any question in the chat, we don't have any. And we have support of large client SDK. So the packages that software developers use for creating their application, we have all of those that is integrated independently from Azure, so we can get cross-platform features that Azure provides. And Let me just see if how the Azure for service works. So as I said in the beginning, we see a serverless architecture from this feature because we are not actually using physical servers here. We are just using our application client-based calls and the WebSocket calls. And then let's go over through some of the applications that these provide. We covered a few in the beginning. We have some collaborative apps that will be like co-authoring whiteboard apps. Since we are in a space where we are providing client multiple user interaction, so one could be user A and user B, which is doing collaborative approach. If you see whiteboards that we have, they would be requiring these features. Our big push would be also from the social media aspect. If you see, they are providing real-time broadcasting automation and how games and email work in real time. And we also have automation from real-time trigger of upstream events. If you see, it's written here, while Azure Web Pub services can scale to provide real-time messaging and notification, you can use it for various other scale at a smaller scale. So if we are not going to connect with a lot of clients in uh, and using by Azure service, we can also use it for small features as I just demoed on the chat app that we have. Let us also browse through the code that we have. So if you were thinking about how our index page was looking like, if you see we have a ready-made page provided by GitHub for understanding and learning the service. So it's a static page that uses from the client side and the server side, and then it provides the demonstration of the features that we just see. There are a few more people here. Okay, so if you want to see how our JSON connections works from this service that you're sending, so if you see context first, like it uses user ID to present from both the users, the functions that we are using for triggering both the services. These are APIs that are using and that are being used end to end to provide from one system to another system as we're using data. Just see, right. We sent a two message here. Here. So let me quickly also show you, since you're using Azure services, it's very good that you know how to close your services, how you delete all of your resources. So I'll show you what all we created and how we are going to delete it. If you see, I'll start with closing both these URLs. I'll also go to our settings on GitHub. It does not need to merely be closed, but since we are running service, let's start from the beginning that we created and then just delete whatever we
Sushant,
don't need more. Yes.
like
Yes,
just have
Maulik,
a
tell me.
small doubt. Could you please explain like how can this be useful for my banking app? Does
Okay.
this include anything?
So let me take a few instances that we were discussing here. Yes, talking about banking apps, we can talk about one as a business app could be a collaborative app that we provide. For example, using whiteboards, because when we're having any business meeting or enterprise meetings, we will require a whiteboard where we discuss all the real-time mapping that we are looking into. So that is one. We also can look into targeted ads that we are using from one user to another user and creating an ad in any ecosystem. We're also talking about real-time broadcasting. Since we are talking about a banking app specifically, we also talk about events and the news broadcasting that they do from their side. So it's very important. And we also use it for remote control and IoT devices. So this is a very big, huge case on itself, and it has a very big market which will be using this. And also we are talking about having cross-platform live connections. So it can be having a live chat room, customer support, online support, real-time assistant, all of these. Uh, yes, does this answer your question? Okay.
Yeah, thanks for that.
Thank you, Murli. Okay. While I was just summarizing, let me just finish this one. We were properties. First, deleting the repo, then going to a resource. Let me just exit from our cloud cell. Close this one. We created a chat app. We have two services that will be there. So one is the static web app that is created from GitHub runs. We created that. Let me delete this one first. So this is the actual chat app that we are using. So we open it from two clients, and then we can start chatting from this website. Since you are deleting this, this won't work again. Yes, it failed because we just deleted it. We are also using the Web PubSub service. So let me just delete this as well. This, and lastly, we'll also be deleting the resource group. If you're using this at college, so it's better that you delete all of these resources once you're done, so that you are not wasting any of these resources. Yes, we successfully finished our course and demo for today. And thank you guys for being a sport and helping me with the whole course. Let me stop sharing. I'll be taking all these materials and sending it to you guys so that you can follow along. And you guys, if you guys have any doubts, you can come on my email or the chat that we created on WhatsApp if you have any other questions. We got a question on Azure PubSub service being better than other platforms. So if you see what Azure simply provides is very simple way of creating a service that we are requiring that starts from a very small scale and that can be made to an enterprise scale. So as I showed in the demo, we created a very basic app that anyone can do. You do not need to have any coding knowledge. We have the code provided to you. We just need to see how these features works and then start learning. So the learning curve here with Azure is very easy. And since it is Azure services, it has cross platform support that Azure provides, and we have a lot of other integrated service that you can use directly from Microsoft. So I believe that is why the service from Microsoft is quite easy to adapt and very good for students. Okay, since we are towards the ending, so thank you guys for being there. I'll be ending the meeting now. Don't forget to provide some feedback directly on the WhatsApp itself. Thank you guys. Have a great evening.